like
it can
Romero, it's racism
films, yeah.
and then consumerism.
The wealth, the one film was End of the Dead, the wealth disparity and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, where they're locked in the mall. So obviously, kind of a symbol for what people can turn into with rampant consumerism, or whenever something grabs hold of their mind. So there are other issues that have been explored in horror. So what are some of the social issues that you think should be touched upon? Because you had said that they should.
In The Mist, if anybody sees the movie of Stephen King's story, The Mist, it talks about racism quite a bit in there. In fact, the two factions break up over race.
That's true. The racism is, yeah, you're right. Racism is a big, is a big issue. I mean,
Master race.
Yeah, master race. I mean, there's a lot of there is racism, but I don't think a lot of folks realize that even within races, there is racism within races. You know, and the very idea that we can divide ourselves based on these really trivial characteristics.
I want to say something about that, and that's that racism is a natural, atavistic response that dates from the time when we were hunter-gatherers, and the success of survival meant sticking to your own kind and beating off the enemy because you were fighting over scarce resources. Racism is a natural part of the human makeup. That doesn't mean it's good. There's a lot of parts of the human makeup we don't like, and we have to fight against them. But we have to understand where it comes from.
See, Mike, when you say beating off the enemy,
yeah, I knew you were.
I kind of think it's something else.
She's had enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're cut off. Well, okay, so horror. It seems like there's two different types of horror. It seems like it's for me anyway. It seems like a horror that works through in personal type of issues rather than larger societal issues that can be more effective. But universal things that we all share, but not necessarily societal things, but things within ourselves that we all share. So our fear of the unknown, our fear of
the other,
the fear of the other, the fear of something larger than ourselves having control.
Star Trek: First Contact. That's a horror film. The Borg. That's a horror film. The loss of identity, right? That you no longer have control over your own will. That's a great horror analogy right there.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That was also
remade because it's always spinning around it.
But losing yourself and then having somebody else replace you because you don't fit a certain criteria.
Well, and the inability to identify the enemy, the other, because they look just like you. I mean, or sometimes they are you. I mean, that's.
I'm getting all sorts of ideas here. I'm gonna totally steal all this. You're gonna have to beat
Looks like I'm gonna.
Yeah. My horror book is about personal issues, and of course there's slapstick stuff in there too, because while I'm torturing the character with his fears, I'm also making fun of him.
How many of those issues have to do with mom?
There's one in there.
There's one? All my issues have to do with my mom.
Mine are dad.
Dad?
There's a touch of horror in Black Swan, particularly the Barbara Hershey role, mother of the dancer.
Yeah. Anybody else here have mom issues?
Dad issues?
Dad
That's all we're all
issues. The stepfather.
The stepfather.
That's a really good and that's a good example of a comic book that a movie that
was a comic.
keys into. Was it a comic book too?
No.
A movie
that film. It was good.
It could have been. But you really, it kind of keyed into something. I mean, I'm waiting for the next big thing to happen. You've done vampires, you've done werewolves,
done zombies.
Zombies. Yo.
Shout out. We still love you. Still love you. Shout out to Zombie in the back.
But what is the big thing now that I spoke with one of the creators of the Blair Witch Project a while back for an interview. Said, what is the next big thing on the horizon that's supposed to scare people? He says that the scares that are to come are in technology. I mean, think about it. Well, we've talked about, like the Terminator, Skynet comes to life and takes over.
Space Odyssey.
I'm sorry?
Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey?
2001. I mean, HAL just.
HAL? Oh, actually, that's very good.
HAL
Yeah.
is good.
But the
all
demons-
the like dystopian society stuff, did that fall into the horror stuff, the Stand, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
Stand is definitely horror.
Yeah.
How about Logan's Run? How many of you think Logan's Run is a scary film? That movie scares the crap out of me.
What do you call it? When I was a kid, the robot that frees people in the caverns, that scared the hell out of me.
There was a question back there? Yeah.
Actually, there was just software developed to help computers feel regret when they don't serve their users' needs.
We really need to work on that. That's
That just seems like a really bad
It sounds like a good idea, but it kind of hints at the whole horror of our technology getting smarter and then eventually getting smarter than we are.
There's a Canadian movie called Colossus: The Forbin Project. It's about 30 years old. It's a wonderful movie about how all the computers in the world hook up and take over. Scary movie. There's no gore in it whatsoever. Scary movie.
Well, that
The
harkens
approach
back
of
to-
singularity.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that, Chris Wilde's prediction that man and machine are going to merge, and that you'll be able to store your personality, get a new body, be enhanced mechanically with nanotechnology, that man and machine are going to merge, and the machine is going to be smart.
I see a lot of horror in human trafficking and the sex trade. I think a lot of folks don't realize that that's a very real thing. When you consider that slavery still exists in the United States due to human trafficking, people don't. It happens under our noses.
Right.
We don't see it. There's a lot to be found, and there's a lot of stuff to be mined in there too.
Well, and a lot of the, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, that's huge. And then going back to the technology stuff, it harkens back to Frankenstein, your creation, running amok out of your control, trying to imbue some kind of sentience or soul into a creation.
Way to bring us down.
What about like paranormal activity though? Almost kind of
The actual
Blair Witch
paranormal
kind of-
activity or the film paranormal activity?
Both. But the film specifically. 'Cause it was,
I heard that's supposed to be scary.
I
The loaded word is suppose.
Did you see the movie?
I did not actually see the movie.
I did.
Was it scary?
I wanted my time back. I really wish I'd read the book. There were a few minutes in it that had could give you a chill, but otherwise it was some pretty mundane footage for me.
a lot like
for me.
Blair Witch in a way, where they didn't.
Well, I don't
show
know,
you
that being
much,
lost
they
out in
let-
the woods stuff with all the noises and stuff going on, that's a lot spookier to me than.
See, to me, the whole thing with something like that is justifying a camera being on the whole time. Blair Witch did a very good job of it. With Paranormal Activity, as I was watching the film, I was like, really? You're keeping the camera on? Seriously?
Kid, get your question in.
What about cryptids and unknown creatures, kind of like Bigfoot or the Chupacabra, things like that?
Ash will be fighting the Chupacabra in Army of Darkness, yes.
There are actually, there's a Chupacabra movie out called Chupacabra Terror, starring John Rhys Davies. I have it. I haven't watched it. It's just too frightening to even contemplate.
But in one way.
Yeah.
Not for the
I picked it up for
Chupacabra.
$3 at Big Lots.
Nice.
That's where I get most of my movies.
But that's the lore, the folk legend, you know, Chupacabra, Bigfoot.
That's what Hellboy's been doing
Yeah.
for years. Yeah.
You know, what is it about lore these days? I mean, let's face it, Loch Ness Monster doesn't scare anybody because you can get the Loch Ness Monster on a t-shirt.
Mm.
You know, what is out there now that really scares folks because we've made it a consumer product. Pinhead, great concept, great character, great visual image, but now you got him on a t-shirt.
Well, so you can just say Jason.
Did you ever see Freaks by Todd Browning?
Oh, that is
Wonderful. Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Our Jason right here.
Is that Jason right there? There you go. Aw, sad Jason.
You just want to hug him.
Because it's the 12th.
Friday the 12th. I hate it when that happens.
So we're winding down. We have about, I would say, 5 minutes. So, any last questions or any final comments? Yeah.
Can I ask each of the panel what their favourite horror film is?
I'd say The
Favourite horror
Exorcist,
film?
personally. That one was the first one to really scare the life out of me.
Which one?
The Exorcist. Saw
The
that as a
Exorcist
kid.
is the scariest movie ever made.
Not go traditional, and I mentioned before, I love Cemetery Man. I think that's a great film.
Sorry?
Cemetery Man. It's also called Della Morte. It's an Italian horror film. It's really, it's a funny
Hipster horror.
It is a hipster horror film. It is a
I like
hipster-
an
there's a love story.
Italian horror film.
Wow. Did I give you whiskey? Yeah,
You
right.
did. It is good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. First Nightmare on Elm Street still creeps me out.
Really?
The first Nightmare on Elm Street. The sequels just got too goofy. But the first one, that scene when the body bag, Angela Shannon, I forgot her name. She sees her friend being dragged down the hallway in the dream, the body bag, and there's a trail of blood behind it. Wes Craven is a master at coming up with those indelible visual images that stick with you forever.
You just like it because Johnny Depp's in it.
So
He's-
listen, we're on
yeah,
the
it's his
fire
first
sale
film.
on this book,
First
so
film.
come back to the booth and buy it. It's really scary.
What did you think of the remake?
I didn't like. It didn't need all the real world infusion that it got. To me, I don't need the villain to be obviously a despicable person.
Mm.
You know, to me, just the idea that Freddy Krueger was a child molester,
Mm-hmm.
that was enough for me.
Okay.
Really, the remake tried to, in a way, make him a sympathetic character.
Yeah, try to humanize him too.
Try to humanize. I don't need to humanize a pedophile.
Halloween
The Halloween remake did the same thing.
Same thing.
Where he's a beat kid and
Yeah.
he's being picked on by his dad and
Yeah.
this and that. It was scarier when he was just a big, huge guy who killed people.
He was a force of nature.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
basically what he was. Something that you couldn't understand and control with a William Shatner mask. That was the scary part.
Mike, what was your favorite one?
Well, The Exorcist is.
The Exorcist.
But I was going to mention The Ring too. Both versions. The American version is honestly scary.
Thank you.
I always thought The Omen, the original Omen, was
The
pretty
Omen is
scary.
another one.
I'm gonna say, like, throw out another Italian horror, Suspiria.
Ooh, that actually is a good one. That is a good
Suspiria.
one. That's a good one.
That is actually Suspiria.
That is a good
was the film that started the slasher films. It was the first
Oh, really?
slasher
What year
film.
did it come out?
77. It was before Halloween, and Halloween kind of, and they did it. It was like one of the things of Suspiria was, it was like the colors in it was just, oh yeah, it was just very vivid and bright. So when a woman got stabbed, the blood, it was.
That actually is a really good one.
It's really good. It's really scary.
And one more, The Silence of the Lambs.
But I think that's more of a thriller than a
I
horror.
think it has horror elements and it's very scary.
Anybody seen Mum and Dad? We're showing it here very soon.
Which one?
What was it
Mum and
called?
Dad?
Mom and Dad? No, I've never heard of it.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So you're showing it, I think, tonight.
Well, that about wraps it up. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you.